ADHD Babes, the podcast, a podcast hosted by the ADHD Babes community for the community. Please note, nothing mentioned during the podcast is meant as a diagnosis. If you believe you have ADHD, please seek professional advice and visit or join ADHDBabes.com for help with diagnosis. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. And now, you're listening to the next episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. Thank you to everyone who's joined us by listening so far. Don't forget to follow so you never miss an episode. And also rate, review, and share so that others can find us too. Today's episode is hosted by me, Anna, and
also by me, Chichi. Hi, everyone. And today we're going to be discussing why do ADHD brains attract narcissists?
amazing. What a super interesting subject. Joining in on the discussion, we are joined by a guest, ADHD Babes, Gladys, Niquelle, and hello, and Fallon.
Hi, everyone. So that our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, can you introduce yourself, your pronouns, and a bit about what you do? Gladys, please, let's start with you.
Hi, my name's Gladys, pronouns she. I raise awareness on and advocate for survivors of narcissistic and domestic abuse. I work in finance as well, and I also started a master's this week in social work. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well done.
Wow. That is amazing. You certainly are busy. So congratulations on starting the master's and on all the stuff you do. And thank you for making time to be here. Okay, and Niquelle, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Niquelle Latouche. Pronouns, I prefer to use the woman with a B, but she, her is fine. Niquelle is also just what goes anywhere. In terms of me, I'm an artist, but I'm also in the education world. So I'm a practicing fine artist and hip hop practitioner, predominantly in the theatre world. But I also am in the education system, qualified English teacher, but also work within alternative pedagogies and practices to make things more inclusive. So the most recent thing was hip hop school that now exists in the theatre.
Wow, that's really cool. That is really cool. So thank you so much for sharing about that and welcome. I love it. We ADHD folks, there's always several things that we're doing. So
Yes.
I love it. Yes, welcome. And thank you, Niquelle. And finally, Fallon, would you please tell us a bit about yourself, your pronouns, a bit about what you do?
Hey everyone, so my name is Fallon, pronouns are she, her. I work in mental health, so I'm a CBT therapist, and I also do content creation, so I do UGC content creating, just a bit of fun on the side, and I also run a cleaning business and a lingerie business, so yeah, that's it about me.
My goodness, I love it. See, so many things. We're so multi-talented. Welcome,
Right?
welcome, and thank you so much for making the time to be here. Thank you all.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
for having
you.
me.
Let's start with the big question. So, why do ADHD brains seem to attract narcissists? So, ADHD brains are wired for intensity. We love hard, we feel deeply, we trust quickly, and narcissists feed on that energy, right? ADHD or ADHDers are more geared towards being empaths. Impulsivity sometimes leads to saying yes before checking if the situation or person is safe. Love bombing feels even more powerful when you crave stimulation and validation. That's powerful, isn't it? So, shall we start with you, Gladys? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, like you said, ADHD babes, ADHD people tend to be empaths, empathetic, forgiving, overcompensating. And also as well, on the other side as well, is also low self-esteem as well, and anxiety. And narcissists can feed off that kind of energy and also in a way see that coming as well. And as ADHDers, we can hyper focus on an emotion, on a feeling. So if, for example, the narcissist is love bombing us, we hyper focus on that intense feeling, and before we know it, we're in the midst of a narcissistic relationship. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Gladys. How about you, Niquelle?
I think I want to be really cautious in conflating all of our like desires to feel and help and be kind of stimulated and validated with the desire necessarily towards narcissism. I wouldn't necessarily conflate the two, but I would definitely say intensity is something we're very much alert to. Whether that be emotional intensity, love, you're diving headfirst kind of love. We definitely are more susceptible and more attracted to that. And I think where narcissistic traits come in, they feed parts of our desire to have that level of intensity, which makes us a little bit more likely to be drawn to that in a more naive way. And also where that then leaves us in a blind spot slightly with our empathetic parts, because there's a trickery in what we're feeling, and that's the performance that is done by the other part. So there's a empathy we're feeling versus our intuitive that I think is at tension sometimes. But I do think, yeah, definitely our desire for the intensity puts us in a danger zone there.
It's very true. Yes, I agree with that completely. How about you, Fallon?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with the what Gladys said about the love bombing, and also what you mentioned about low self-esteem. So I think that kind of fear and rejection and also craving acceptance, like I'll use myself as an example in a previous relationship. And I kind of knew at the beginning it was love bombing, but I fell into it anyway. But it was that very intense, like all these emotions, almost this perfect person, and then it was taken away. And it was almost like I kept trying to search for that person. It was almost like a game. It was like push-pull energy. So the more I kind of tried to bring that person back, the more that person was going further away. And I think sometimes we can get caught in that cycle, and then you just end up spending years in that situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And, that's a really good point. Thank you all for sharing your experience and your opinions and ideas. And I really like what you said also, Niquelle, about not necessarily conflating the two. And I also want to say that we all have individual experiences, even though we're neurodivergent ADHD people have individual experiences. So it's not to say all ADHD people are this, or all narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies are this. But thank you for sharing. So you, Fallon, talked about this a little bit, the vulnerability side. ADHD often comes with challenges around self-esteem. And I think somebody else may have said that as well. So we've been told you're too much, we're not enough. And narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies can sniff that out. And so things like our forgetfulness and or lateness can be twisted into you're unreliable. And then, of course, the rejection sensitivity, which can be huge with people with ADHD. And it can lead to the narcissistic person playing off this and calling them or calling us too sensitive. And then emotional dysregulation makes gaslighting hit harder because you already doubt yourself. We already doubt ourselves. So thank you for leading into that. It can make it really hard.
Can all of you share if that resonates? How about you? Let's go with Fallon.
Yeah, I think for me it does resonate a lot, because I do tend to criticize myself a lot. So being in that dynamic, it just makes me feel a lot worse. And it's almost like the people pleasing tendencies tend to come out a lot more. So I almost blamed myself for this person not being who they were in the beginning. So I felt like I must have done something wrong. So now I need to fix it, essentially. So yeah, which again just feeds back into that whole cycle. So yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you. How about you, Gladys? Gladys?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I was in a relationship with a narcissist which spanned quite a long time. And yeah, I got diagnosed with ADHD at the beginning of the year. So I reflected on a lot of things in terms of my emotions, the rejection sensitivity, the not the what's it called? Injustice, always having a feeling of injustice. For me, thinking now, that is an ADHD trait, not being against injustice, knowing that things were wrong and trying to stand up for it as best as I could at the time. And so, yeah, it definitely does resonate a whole lot, definitely, with me. The emotions are so heightened, especially as an ADHDer. You're too sensitive. We feel emotions in such an intense way that when we feel a bit of rejection, even in the slightest, it hits hard. So yeah.
Definitely. Also, Niquelle, do you have anything to say about that? And thank you, Gladys. Sorry about that. Thank you. Niquelle, does this resonate with you at all?
Yeah, a lot. I think, yeah, definitely. I also got late diagnosis, so I also got diagnosed in October last year, and a lot of like the ongoing things, even within my like familial structure, was about sensitivity and like too sensitive to certain things. And I think that feeling of like justice and right and wrong, the morality side has definitely been deeply entrenched. But truth also, like the validation of truth has been a real, I must contextualize. So my mum has narcissistic personality disorder. So even in that kind of mother wound, there has been this dynamic that has been kind of navigating that with the ADHD, which I've now understood to be ADHD. And I think a lot of her wounds are based on truth also. So it almost exacerbates her narcissistic traits. So in terms of like gaslighting and understanding inconsistencies, I became like very hyper vigilant and hyper aware as a result of that as a child, which now makes for a great teacher apparently. Like those abilities to really like read micro facial expressions and micro body language and became heightened. And I think that then meant I've been super critical, even in like romantic partnerships where like an energy shifts and I'm like, what's happened? And it's not necessarily that I'm like catering to their every need and people pleasing kind of tendencies, but it's more like I'm super sensitive to an energy shift or a change of emotion slightly. Like I'm like a second will happen and I'm like on it, which over time you kind of work through with the right person. But I think that like hypersensitivity is the only way I can describe it, has definitely come from like having to fact check. Did that? I know that did, and I became very good at writing things down because I had to like, no, this happened on this day, and I will not be gaslit. Which goes into other things that you then interested into later. But it definitely was for me like a survival mechanism that got put in play very early in terms of like reading the room and evidencing the facts of a situation very quickly.
Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness.
It feels, I'm sorry that I came in, Chichi, because your
No worries.
experience sounds so much like mine. I mean, I also have a narcissistic mum as well, and it's really hard when it's someone who has taken care of you all of your life and all of the things that you believe this person has done for you, has done to protect you. But then it comes the gaslighting, then comes the devaluation, and then it comes you're trying to cling because they're like, I was taught in my culture, your mother is everything. Your mum and dad are everything. You need to respect mother and father, even through religion, Christianity, all of that, all of those things. So, whatever they said went, sort of thing. And then even as an adult, when I had my children, and there were things that I would go to them for advice, and then I was like, yeah, that advice does not sound like it's the thing I should be doing. So, setting those boundaries, it was a process. It was a process because I mean, I feel like everyone in this room was probably like late diagnosed. And I always say congratulations when someone says, oh, I've been diagnosed, because it's like an eye opener. Like it just kinds of, there's a lot of confusion and there's loads of understanding or whatever, but it's also like, oh my goodness, now I get it. Like I understand. And then you kind of realize, okay, but this is something I inherited from my parents too. So that means my parents are also neurodiverse. And then, it gets deeper and you get deeper and deeper into it. And now when I do talk to my mum, they are those very strict boundaries. And, as soon as she starts and I see the signs coming, I'm just like, okay, I am going to respectfully end this conversation right now and not just sit there and take it and take it and take it and just walk away feeling like completely demoralized. So yeah, go ahead, Chichi.
No, beautiful. I relate so much to both of you, Niquelle and Anna. And yeah, my experience with, I'm just going to say people with narcissistic tendencies because there's a lot of, I don't know who's diagnosed or not, but people with narcissistic tendencies has really come more from like family, even though I have brought that into relationships. So what you said, Niquelle, about the partner, like my previous relationship, yeah, like my partner, definitely, we had our issues, but I would remember like she would like not text me back and I'd be like, oh my God, she hates me. She hates me. And she was like, we live together. Like, what? Like, I don't hate you, but it's like any little thing because I've learned to be very hypervigilant. Anytime the energy shifts, even around people I feel safe with, like when I came into this recording and we were testing and there's silence, oh my God, it's about me, and this is a very safe space for me, but because I'm used to like that hypervigilance that I got like growing up and exactly what you said, Anna, that feeling gaslit, feeling like, family, they're everything, but it's like almost like I don't matter, but I matter. So it's all, and it's cultural and all of that stuff. It's been a big struggle and I've brought that into relationships. So, and so I really, really relate to both of what you said. Niquelle, I do want to touch on one thing you said. You talked about truth. Can you elaborate on that? I didn't quite understand. And also for our listeners.
I guess in having to, archive the truth of situations a lot of the time, having been gaslit on multiple levels at many times, it then your and obviously knowing now I have a short-term memory, like it became super important to archive and log and track things, because if I didn't, I would be questioning the validity of a situation that just occurred, or if it did or didn't, or in the way that I've recorded it, have I forgotten? Because in the nature of being gaslit, that's the aim. But I think then in many things past the initial interaction, I think I've also now just become really good at logging and archiving and the follow-up email person, like just as a result of that. But it has meant that it's really purely for me to always have a paper trail on everything, and that has come unfortunately from a trauma wound initially.
No, thank you for that. And thank you for elaborating on that. And honestly, I'm like, that's a tip for me. So yeah. So thank you for sharing. Just to bring it back to partners, narcissistic partners, but it can also apply to narcissistic family members. Here's how the cycle often looks. With hyperfocus, you laser in on a new partner, which makes the narcissist feel like royalty. Love bombing meets hyperfocus. The connection feels like destiny. Then comes the devaluation. Your ADHD traits get turned against you. The shame spiral makes you cling harder because you're trying to prove you're not the problem. And I think, again, this is particularly for romantic relationships. I do think it can happen in friendships too, honestly. And with parents and family, I think there can be cycles of like love bombing and, you suck, like, devaluation, love bombing, and complete like being gaslit. So, but also the cultural of like, especially if it's parental, you're supposed to respect your parents. So all of that going on. So feeling like, oh, let me do these things out of respect for my parents, but I feel completely unheard and gaslit, and yeah. So anyway, so just wanted to share that. Anna?
Yeah. So have you got any sort of examples, or have you noticed, for example, a cycle in your experiences of the things that Chichi just mentioned.
Well, yes, definitely. And also in terms of narcissists and where you can find them anywhere. You can find them, again, like you said, relationships. You can find them in family members. You can find them in the workplace. It's just, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's a cycle of, like we've discussed, love bombing. Once they've got you in their little web, then it's the detachment of the love. They take away the love suddenly, and you're like, oh wow, what's happened? 2 weeks ago or a week ago, we were, the best thing since sliced bread. Now we're kind of like at each other's throat, and there's like all this back and forth, and you're kind of like surprised, as in, oh, why are we arguing so much? Do you know what I mean? And there's no more compliments. All the compliments have suddenly disappeared out the window, and you're there as the victim, or the ADHD person, and you're kind of confused, and because you just want to go back to 2 weeks ago where you were walking hand in hand, in the park, everything's lovely, the butterflies are up, everything's great, and now you're in this situation where you're confused and you're kind of in fight or flight mode consistently. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a minefield. The whole kind of narcissism, it is a minefield. And like you guys were saying about family members, it can even be tougher as well at times with family members, because family members are meant to be are your first caregivers. So with family members, it's like it's so tough, because it's like you're meant to love your mum. Your mum's meant to love you. That's just how standard. But when narcissism comes into it, it's a whole minefield, basically.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And I just, my goodness, as I said, we all find ourselves in situations like that. And then if we were to talk about every single one of those situations, this podcast will go on for so long. How about you, Fallon? Have you noticed this kind of cycle in your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. Just especially the hyper focus, and also as well, what I've noticed is a lot of narcissists tend to play on the fact that as ADHDers, sometimes we tend to be empaths. So in my experience, especially, it was a lot of guilt tripping, or like very emotional stories, just to kind of keep you trapped in that. So whenever it came to, for example, taking accountability, the shift was from them onto you, but they're the victim because they're going through X, Y, Z, and now you need to help them pick up the pieces, or it's because of you why they're going through this. And again, you just continue in that cycle. It's never their fault, always your fault. And then again, people pleasing. So now you want to be the fixer, and it's just ongoing. It's just, yeah, you're literally in a web of different things. But then saying that as well, because I had a conversation with a friend who was experiencing a narcissistic relationship as well, who also has ADHD, and for that friend, it was more kind of fixed. So it was the unpredictability. Like one day we're lovey-dovey and we're happy and we're great and we're in love, and tomorrow, don't know, might be chaotic and we're arguing and we're going through all these things. So it's like each day I don't know what's coming, and it just keeps the dopamine search. So again, there's that aspect of it as well. But then again, you just keep yourself stuck in that kind of toxic cycle, and it's like, how do I get out of this? Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing, Fallon. How about you, Niquelle? Niquelle, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess in terms of the like love bomb cycles, and then kind of coming back and forth to like, how do I describe this? Okay, so in a nutshell, I almost now can calendarize the points in the year when I know the like narcissists in my contact book will pop up. And like
Wow.
they've become quite predictable. And ironically, actually, this morning, my mum actually did a little love bomb this morning. But my birthday's New Year's Eve. So that's a really nice, like, oh, it's Christmas period, all of those things coincide. And it's usually like week before Christmas, I'll get a message, then I'll ignore it. And then before my birthday, there'll be some sort of like throwback to whatever, which will also get ignored. And then it's a Happy New Year, and like a lot of probing to like fish. But then also there are like key periods in the year which, like, my family we were raised Christian Catholic, and so like the Christian calendar points. So like Easter time, Christmas times, like when everyone's kind of in like family spirits. Those are the key points that I think are used. And then obviously summertime and everybody outside and looking extra glorious because of the vitamin D. So those like periods I think are like the hot points when they crop back up. But I think that's primarily from a place of the self-importance. In those moments when it's your celebrating time or your family time, or is when they want to insert themselves as the center of everything. It is usually through like my social media platforms. Most of my like public facing stuff is quite online, so they'll like spam like everything. Bearing in mind they've probably already liked it and like had to unlike to relike to like just disrupt the notifications. They'll like spam like everything so that they are making sure that they're seen. Then they will like try and DM. They probably can't anymore because they're blocked on all of those, restricted on all of those. But then we'll try like have gone as far as gone online and like, you know, you can text through the internet and like send a random message, or like it's actually I had to kind of separate myself from the emotion of it when I then kind of could see the behavior, and actually it then made me quite sad for how calculated it is, because there's a lot of effort put into doing it, and I'm not sure they're completely aware how much of their energy they're also spending in trying to kind of keep you in this spiral. But once you're then out of it, it's almost in this, you're in this weird, and this is where the ADHD comes into play. Like even me extending empathy for somebody attempting to do me harm is like probably past the point of like value for me. But I think there is something in when you're seeing them go from the love bomb into the attempt to devalue, and you know it's like you're almost immune to it at that point. You really see real like rage come over them in a way that's so consuming, and that spiral is where like I've now moved away from the shame on my own side, where before when I was younger and less aware of it, I guess it used to like make me feel like, why, like, you suddenly celebrated maybe a poetry thing I did, and it's like, cool, we don't have a relationship anymore, but like I love that you posted that, but then equally after be like cussing, and you're like, whoa, I don't understand what's happened, you know. And because it's such an abrupt switch, that's quite harsh to emotionally process. But I think it's that trauma lens on it of like separate the person from the behavior, and I think now I'm starting to see how calculated and effort, how much effort that takes, and
It's
I'm
the
just like,
effort.
you got time.
Yeah. They do. Because it's
Gosh, you
about
got time.
control. It's about control, and they're not losing that control and always trying to make themselves feel better. I know even like it's really weird when it's a parent. It just feels like, why though? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Like my mother for one at one point said, you'll never be better than me. And I thought, what? Why would you even say that to your child? I have 3 kids and I want my children to do a lot better than me. Like, please leave me as far behind as possible, because that's what you want for your kids when your love is so pure and is so clean, and you just want the best for them. That I've just never couldn't understand until I actually went through the processes of separating, as you say, the person from the behavior and why this was happening. When you actually know and you put a name to it, you kind of, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's it. You detach yourself from that completely, and you leave that person with those feelings, and you leave that person with that guilt, and you leave that person with that control. You go ahead and do what you need to do.
I love that you said about the like better than the like competitiveness of it.
Yes.
And like it is a trait, I can't lie, and maybe this is me being biased. Since I have known I've been diagnosed with ADHD, almost every single person I know that has ADHD, whether it's in combination or, we're multi-talented people. Like let's not down talk that, like we are. And
Yes,
there
we
is
are.
a superpower that we all have that we could do multiple things very well. And most of the time, it's because we were just bored and we wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't choose this. It's just part of me. But so many people are so like threatened by that. But it's not us actually trying to better one up anyone. It's just our nature. Like, we like doing new things and we happen to be very good at them because we fix on it and thrive. But then when you get a love relationship where it's like a romantic relationship, especially with like modern men, it's the modern man has become emasculated, and that's a whole different conversation. But when you're a woman with all these multi-talents, and then you're then in this position where like competition is coming into play, and it's almost like you've just stoked the fire of a narcissist, because there's so much for them to like tear down, that it's like you're like prized possession of what empire can I tear down first. We have so many opportunities to like put.
I hear that, and unfortunately for women who date men, there's languaging around, especially with Black women or Black non-binary people, but there's languaging around like you shining is somehow emasculating the man. And there's like, what? And the two have nothing to do with each other. But there is that languaging, and what you said about, ADHDers, we tend to be multi-talented and we tend to shine, especially in things that quote unquote regular people struggle with. When I think of, a particular person in my life, I think there's real jealousy about, for me, I'm very friendly, I'm hyperverbal, I can talk to anybody. And I think there's just real jealousy of like, we can go to like Costco and I'm like talking to the Costco person. I'm like, oh, and they remember me like, hey, oh, I'm going to sing for you. And it's like, this person was like, why do you have to be so blah, blah, blah? I'm like, what, friendly and nice? Like, but it's a problem. So that jealousy is there. And fear, I think there's so much fear and control. And I think, a thing with people who are narcissists or have narcissistic tendencies, they struggle with self-awareness. Like they cannot see their behavior. So there's so much fear and control. And it's painful. It's really painful and hard to deal with. Because we have our struggles. Like I'm just trying to get up in the morning and be on time. Like I don't need this extra stuff. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And this really segued nicely into breaking the pattern. So, and you all, Niquelle, Anna, like you touched on it. Awareness. Awareness is the first shield. Naming what's happening takes the power back. Niquelle, you do demonstrate a lot of awareness, which is wonderful to see. So so awareness. And Anna will talk a bit about boundaries too.
Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries help so much, as I said, and I talked about that before in terms of like that particular relationship I mentioned. But there's loads of other relationships that I found myself where, as I said, as Chichi has said, I became quickly aware that it wasn't really healthy, and there were those traits, and I probably at the time I didn't know what narcissism was. I think I only started to read about it in the last couple of years, and I'm 43. So for a long period of time, I didn't really know what it meant. Slowing down the pace of connection, giving yourself checkpoints before diving in is very, very important.
I totally agree. And thank you for sharing that, Anna. And there's also, of course, therapy, coaching, practical supports like reminders in your routines. ADHD-friendly tools can stop a narcissist from weaponizing your symptoms. And I also want to say, and this is my personal experience, really leaning into and trusting my intuition, because there's so much gaslighting going on. And unfortunately, I can also gaslight myself. And Niquelle, you touched on that with, writing things down and stuff like that. So because I can also gaslight myself, I think really practicing trusting my intuition and trusting myself first is very helpful. Like, it doesn't mean I'm always correct and everything, but at least I will have my own back. And I practice that. I've been saying I have my own back always. I will not abandon myself like I did for all my life because I didn't know better. So I really think, that really is a big help in addition to, everything else we had mentioned, really just practicing having my own back, especially with somebody who is neurodivergent, and we can often feel like we're wrong in this world. And it's like, no, we're not. We're exactly who we're supposed to be. So, yeah. So back to you, Anna.
That's right. That's right. So what has helped you personally, Fallon? Would you like to, yes, what's helped you personally?
Yes, I think for me the big one is awareness. So I only actually got diagnosed with ADHD about 5 months ago, so back in April. So since that, it's like now I'm learning a lot more about ADHD in itself and kind of what my triggers are, how I process things, how I handle relationships as well. And from my narcissistic relationship, that also taught me a lot about, again, what narcissism is and how it shows up and things like that. So I think definitely awareness and understanding different traits. And also, again, like what she said, trusting myself. One thing I am trying to do though is sometimes I don't know whether it's my intuition or it's my fear. So differentiating between the two is something that I kind of struggle with. So again, just kind of focusing, do more inward work, I would say. So looking at therapy, looking at coaching, and just really trying to understand myself better, just so I can show up as my best version in whichever relationship it is, whether it's friendships, relationships, work, careers, business. So yeah, so I think that's it for me, just awareness for myself and obviously learning about other people and what's out there as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fallon. How about you, Gladys?
Basically, I'm just echoing everything that Fallon has said, Chichi has said, understanding what narcissism is, basically. Know what it is in its entirety, understand it, understand the traits, and knowing yourself. So understanding who you are, what your triggers are, understanding what your attachment styles are as well, and why you have certain attachment styles, and just being, super aware and of yourself, how you show up in relationships. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Awareness is the key, I'd say. Awareness is the key. Awareness in terms of who you are as a person, how you love as a person, awareness in terms of what narcissism is, because they will come. They will come again and again and again. But as you get more aware, you're able to kind of call out the gaslighting, call out the blame shifting, call out the victimhood. And that's what the key is for anybody who finds themselves going from, because it happens all the time, go from one toxic relationship to another toxic relationship. As you become more aware, you'll be able to see the signs a lot more clearer.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you.
So I just want to say something. Gladys, you touched on it. Just for our listeners, you mentioned attachment styles, and which is awesome. And I just wanted to highlight what they are. They're also known as relationship styles. And they just basically describe how we relate to others and form bonds in close relationships. And the idea is that we tend to, as we were raised, we tend to like form our attachment style, and then we bring it into our romantic relationships, and they can be changed, but definitely awareness is like big. So what has been listed, the 4 attachment styles, and there's people have different ideas, but I think the most common 4 attachment styles are secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And just for me, I do think I have I'm not avoidant, anxious, and also disorganized attachment style, which makes sense based on how I grew up. So thanks for sharing that, Gladys.
Wow, that's brilliant. I am definitely going to look into that because I really would like to learn more about that. It's every time I talk to Chichi, she teaches me something. I learn something completely new. I absolutely love it.
Thanks.
How about you, Niquelle?
That attachment style thing just had my mind spiraling on so many directions. But Yeah, I think I definitely used to have a more anxious attachment style initially because of the like hypersurveillance traits that I inhabited. But I do think now that's shifted to definitely more secure in its nature. In terms of things that have helped me break the pattern, I'm always going to love hard. So I'm not even going to try and stop myself from being like head first. I'm a lover girl. I live there. It's okay. I'm not going to try and change myself for that part. That's going to be me. I'm an intense, straight in, that's me. But there are certain rules that I've given myself that are kind of principles that I will now always kind of go by. So if I ever have to doubt the truth of something more than once, it's worth a conversation. Whatever it is, if I have to like, was it? Let's talk about it, because having two minds echo back what the thing was is usually quite helpful, because sometimes you might catch your own blind spots. Also, that trauma-informed lens, separate the person from the behavior and see that as separate to them. Another thing that I always do is just play lots of conversation-based games. So I love We're Not Really Strangers. There's a game Debate Date by, they used to be called Bob in the UK. I think they've changed their name to Melanated Minds now. But like conversations about general topics and people-based things. The And also have great card games. And seeing how sometimes you might come back to a card and the answer might have shifted. And yes, we have room for evolution and change, etc. But if it's a completely different thing that was said, I doubt you've evolved that much from last week, for instance, if it was like something like that. And it's not to necessarily test them on their truthability, but it's like when it's not necessarily related to you, but it's about like your value systems, the way you think about the world, it says a lot about mindset. And a lot of the time I've caught a few red flags in those conversations earlier than I would have normally, because some questions like you almost out of fear of like, oh, is this too early to ask? You don't ask. And it's like, I'm in my 30s now. I can ask you some hard questions early in the relationship. And chances are, if you're going to avoid it, this ain't going to go far anyway. So, like, I've become less apologetic for addressing my boundaries early, just because I think it's not worth my sanity and my energy to let you run and set it up to set myself up. But also if it does go past that point where I haven't early detected anything, once you feel intuition, I love that Fallon talked about intuition versus fear. For me, intuition is not a nice feeling. Intuition is painful. It is the thing that will literally grind your stomach and tell you, are you not listening? And if you don't listen, your ancestors will bamboozle you and you'll do something to, it's not nice. You know, so I think a lot of the time we know when our intuition is saying ding ding ding, but we ignore it. And for me, I'm really allowing myself to listen to my body a lot more, and where I can feel those gut feelings, and even if I can't explain it, because my brain wants the logic, it always does. I have to say, brain, shh, shh, shh. Bye, brain. And we're going to listen to the gut today. And I tell you, like, yeah, a woman's intuition is a very powerful thing. And we are conditioned to ignore it. And that is by design. And unfortunately, that's because we're in a patriarchal world. But I'm telling you, it will never guide you wrong. And I am learning to lean into it wholeheartedly. And it has caught me on many things. So if I ever feel that intuition's pull, throw all logic out the window, ignore the mind. Even if the heart is in pieces, listen to the gut. And a lot of the time when you withdraw your energy, they will show themselves and you'll say,
I love that.
100%.
I love that. I just need to say something. I'm like, I love that.
Yes.
That was, oh man. And I do want to say a phrase that I found helpful. And this is like across life. If I don't know what to do, and it goes back to what Fallon and Niquelle was saying about the intuition versus fear. If I don't know what to do nothing. Wait. And I know waiting is not always possible, but often is a lot more possible than my brain, particularly my ADHD brain, wants. Because I'm going, you know. But I've noticed when I wait, and this is in life, in relationships, the universe, source, God, whatever, my ancestors will nudge me one way or another. And sometimes, depending on whether I've been listening or not, it's like a gentle nudge and then a shove. And then, so I've noticed that, like, that's a way that I can usually tell with intuition versus fear, the waiting and seeing if anything in the universe corresponds with what I am thinking or not thinking. And usually, yeah, I always know. It's like, damn it!
Yeah.
So,
You kind of always know. It's yeah, that intuition is one of the things that um is a gift that God has given us, the universe has given us as women. And men know this. And that's why throughout, history, you can see that they've turned, they would say that intuition, it was sorcery, it was witchcraft, we're witches because we kind of had that feeling. When we've got our partners, whether they're female or men or non-binary or whatever, we're like, we tell them, my goodness, I have a feeling about this. Like, it's not the right decision or the right thing to do. And they're like, nah, it's just you. And it's this, and it goes wrong 100% of the times. It will go wrong. And you're like, I told you. I told you so. I knew that was not the right thing to do. And they obviously hate you for it because, men or people in relationships always are at that I don't know, they have their own personalities and they always want to be right and things like that, and there's always going to be struggles and they're going to but it's like you always just know. You always know. And I'm using I was just going to say I've used the example of me as a in a relationship with a man. I don't know what it is like
yeah.
for other folks, like with relationship with other women or non-binary or whatever. So yeah, I'm just talking about my own experience.
Thank you. Yes, I did want to say, like, and I'm not actually talking about a relationship. I do want it to be just a little bit broader
Yeah.
because I really, ADHD is very, LGBTQ friendly and
Yeah,
non-binary, and it's not just women or
100%.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Now, the way I see it, and this is just my thing, I think we're all extremely intuitive. However, I do think people who are assigned male at birth tend to be socialized not to connect to their intuition, and that can also fall with non-binary people, trans people,
yeah,
depending on where you fall. And of course, some people assign females at birth too.
yeah.
But there is this thing that, like, and I think it's really sad. Like, I think it's really sad. Like, a lot of assigned males at birth are just thrown out there to work, 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 and there's no, like, connection. And then if you're trying to be in relationships, particularly like heterosexual relationships with women who are a little bit more socialized to be with their intuition, it makes it tricky.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think conditioning is a big part of it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
What Niquelle said,
So thank you.
it's by design, basically.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is
Patriarchy.
exactly amazing. So to round up this episode, let's recap about what we've spoken today. So I have learned so much from every single one of you. I've got so much to take away with me, and I'm very sure our listeners and our babes are going to identify themselves with this experience. One of the things that I really found interesting is to never change your personality for anyone. The thing that kept coming up as well, that thing about separating the person from the behavior, that's also going to stay with me because sometimes, we see it as one. No, it's not like that. Awareness is super, super, super important to know that we have that room to change and for evolution. And let's seek therapy. What has helped us? Therapy, counseling, talking about it, learn about the subject, learn about, and if and follow our intuition. Absolutely. Don't let your fear sort of like make you think like, oh no, it's not, it's nothing. But definitely believe in that intuition. The 4 attachment styles. Oh wow, that was super, super, super interesting. So I am definitely going to read more about that, and I think that we might need an OCAST. We need an episode to talk about it. What do you think, Chichi?
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Let's do it.
Is there anything else that any of you would like to share about what you've got coming up? You know, what you have coming up in your life and things like that. You want to share with that with the babes? Is that Gladys?
I don't mind sharing some stuff. Yeah, so support groups as well, in terms of what kind of support is out there, especially if you're a survivor of narcissistic abuse. There's a lot of awareness now compared to, let's say, 5 years ago. So there's so much support online. There's women's groups, there's this, that, and the other. And like I said at the beginning, I do raise awareness for narcissistic abuse, advocate for narcissistic abuse survivors. And you can find me online at Strength of a Queen 2 on Instagram or TikTok as well. But yeah, there's a lot of support out there for survivors. There's a lot of information out there in terms of narcissistic abuse. There's so much that could be covered under this umbrella of narcissism.
Yeah.
That it would take more than one episode to everything. But yeah, there's a lot of support out there, and therapy, support groups. Yeah. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you so much. How about you, Fallon?
Not necessarily anything that I have coming up, but just kind of a key takeaway, actually. What that she mentioned about waiting. I think I need to practice waiting a lot more, because I can be very impulsive in my decisions, especially when I'm in the height of emotions. I can't really think about anything else, and I need answers then and there, and I need to make a decision right now. So what I've realized is actually there's so much power in waiting and actually sitting with yourself and sitting with your silence as well, and actually just letting the emotions pass and making a sound decision. And I've realized that there's actually much more power in that, rather than acting impulsively and regretting your decisions. So that's a key takeaway for me, and that's something that I really need to work on. So thank you for sharing that, G, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Fallon. Niquelle?
Takeaways, we need to talk more, man. Like, I just feel like there's every single time there's like so many parallels in our stories and how much healing comes from these conversations. And I think because of some of the things we've experienced, especially having caregivers that have narcissistic tendencies, it means there's so much shame around some of these things. And actually, I'm really now quite keen to, because I'm in the education space, talk more about the things that I've experienced more kind of openly in those kind of settings, because there's a lot of young people and young adults specifically that I think would benefit from knowing that these are conversations that can be had. I was very fearful about having this conversation today, by the way, which I think was compounded by my mum love bombing this morning, which was almost like the universe saying, do it now. But I think there's this real listening to myself that I'm learning to do. And I think in that reminder that Fallon gave about the love versus the intuition versus the fear, my intuition was like, do it. It might be painful, but do it anyway. But the fear of it was like just a fleeting thought. So thank you for that reminder, Fallon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Gladys, Fallon, Niquelle. It's been a pleasure to chat and learn more about you both. Please, would you let our listeners know where they can connect with you, specifically Fallon and Niquelle, because Gladys has already given us her socials handles. Fallon?
Yeah. Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Explore with Fallon, and you can also find me on TikTok at Explore with Fallon.
Thank you. And Niquelle?
Yeah, on everything, my @ is Niquelle L, so NIQUELLE_L. That's on Instagram, TikTok, X, and all of those. But also on my website, there's a contact form if there's any kind of collaborative things you're interested in, niquelletouchearts.com. So yeah.
Thank you. So to our listeners, if you found a sense of home here at ADHD Babes, consider supporting us. That could mean signing up as a member. That could be donating, or even just sharing this podcast with your people. Every bit help us keep us doing the beautiful work that we do. So thank you.
Yep. And you can join the conversation on our Discord or WhatsApp group for members. So yes, join us as a member if you're interested. You can also follow us on socials, so TikTok, Instagram, all the things, at ADHD Babes. We also have a YouTube channel, so subscribe to our YouTube for the video version of this podcast, and it's also at ADHD Babes. And most importantly, stay connected. We're building this together.
Thank you for listening and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ADHD Babes, the podcast. If you're a Black woman or non-binary person and need help and support in managing your ADHD or advice on diagnosis, please visit adhdbabes.com. No clinical diagnosis is required to join. Join us in 2 weeks for a new episode. Until then, all the love from the ADHD Babes team.
Just as I am, can you take me just as I am?